Thanks a lot. Well, so I get to close out by telling the story of the Hope Movement. It's my favorite thing to do. It's what I do every day. Get to travel around the country and tell this amazing story. You know, I love this business because it offers, as someone said earlier today, just ordinary people the ability to live an extraordinary life by being involved with something that goes so far beyond themselves and what they can personally gain, you know, from doing our business. That's the theme of social business. That's why I fell in love with social business. I've always been an entrepreneur, but being a social entrepreneur takes it to a level that very few people get the opportunity to really experience in their lifetime. So I'm going to tell you the story of the Hope Movement. And just go ahead and back it up once. Yeah. So the Hope Movement is a social business. I'll tell you a little bit about social business, kind of what makes it work, what our unique position in the social business industry is, and why we have such a sustainable model for such a time as this. So it's a lot to cover in just a few minutes, so I'm going to do the best that I possibly can. Let me just say that social business, first of all, is kind of a unique composition of a few different industries. It's the cash flow, the profitability, the technology base of a for-profit company, combined with the heart, the passion, and the mission of the not-for-profit industry in order to create sustainable solutions to the world's biggest problems. You know, two recent Nobel Prize winners were social entrepreneurs. They won the Nobel Prize for bringing innovative new solutions to major issues that exist in the world, things like poverty. You know, Muhammad Yunus, the banker of the poor, created a concept called microfinance that in his country, the poorest country on the planet, Bangladesh, impacted the lives of about 40 million people. And today it's the #1 strategy for dealing with poverty in the world. That's the power of social business. You know, these are problems that governments can't handle, can't get their arms around. You know, they're too big, and governments are typically too ineffective, too inefficient, too corrupt in many cases to really pay attention to the things that really plague society. You know, businesses are too consumed with making profit. Social entrepreneurs bring solutions to the world's biggest problems. You know, I read a book called How to Change the World, probably the most prolific book written on social entrepreneurship. And in the book it said, first of all, if you want to be successful, take on the biggest problems. Take on things that no one, you know, has created an effective solution for. Number two, provide an innovative new solution to that problem. In other words, disrupt those that profit from status quo. Now that sounds so high and mighty. Let me tell you something. It doesn't come without challenges. I mean, you're challenging the world's biggest industries that profit from status quo. But status quo is not solving the problem. So you got to have innovative solutions that challenge status quo. They have to be proprietary. Innovation gives you the ability to penetrate the market and make a difference. Proprietary technologies give you the opportunity for sustainability. Because in the world of social business, when you use the best practice of buy one, give one, the only way you can sustain feeding children around the world, in our case, is if consumers consistently take the product. So number one, it has to work. And number two, you got to be the only people with it. Does that make sense? Okay. And then number three, if you can find a creative way of incentivizing we, the people, who become passionate about seeing people's lives change, find a way to compensate them for championing your cause, you can drive your missions to the ends of the earth. So that's what social business is. And that is what we have incorporated into Evolve Help to help meet the demands of our mission, which is eradicating the impact, the global impact of a thing called malnutrition. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so when you think of malnutrition, you usually look at the little child there on the left, and that's what your mind's eye goes to, right? That's called starvation. Now, when a child is starving, no doubt they are malnourished. But malnourishment is not starvation. Malnourishment is not having enough of the essential, nutrients that are required to have your body stay healthy and be able to fight off chronic disease. So, In the world, according to the World Health Organization, 2.6 billion people, that's about a third of the world's population, are malnourished. 1.2 billion have too little access to good quality food, but the larger amount, 1.4 billion, have too much access to poor quality food. That would be us, by the way, if you haven't identified that group. And so the face of malnutrition has dramatically changed in the world. But according to the most recent statistics that came out of the World Health Organization report just this last year, malnourishment is growing in every country of the world. Every country. Okay, next. Okay, so what's the issue with malnutrition? Malnutrition is the primary cause of what's called immunodeficiency. So the top line says malnutrition suppresses an individual's immune system and makes them susceptible to every kind of chronic and infectious disease. That's the problem with malnourishment. Kids don't die of micronutrient deficiency. We don't become chronically ill as a result of microdeficiency. Microdeficiency creates this problem of immunodeficiency. In other words, once our immune systems stop functioning the way that they were designed, folks, bad stuff starts happening, and you can't stop it. 2.3 billion people in the world suffer from chronic conditions. Chronic illness. What does chronic mean? It means there is no solution in medicine for stopping the proliferation of that particular disease or condition. So what do we do in our sick care industry today? The best that we can do is manage the symptoms of chronic disorder. And it's a failed process, and it's going to bankrupt the entire world if we don't get our arms around this problem. So malnutrition has become the #1 root cause of disease, disability, and death in the world. More than 6 million children die every year. Okay, so we're talking about a social business that is taking on a problem. Where does this problem rank in the world? We know that there's poverty. We know that there's environmental issues. We know there's lack of education. This is the #1 cause of disease, death, and disability. You got to move that one to the top of the list because it is the most devastating impact on society that we see in society and that exists in the world today in the 21st century. Next slide. What's happening in America? This is chronic conditions as a result of immunodeficiency, guys. This came out from a RAND report just this year, 2017. I'm sorry, last year. Now look, down at the bottom it says these are the number of diseases, chronic diseases, and the amount that it costs healthcare. So, how many people in our country, adults, live with one or more chronic disorders? At least one, 59%. It's 59.8. So if you round it, it's 60% of the people in our country live with at least one chronic disorder. What does that cost us? 90% of our total health care cost. 90% of about a $3 trillion industry, which is called sick care or health care, but it's a sick care industry, comes from those people. 28% of our population have 3 or more, 12% have 5 or more, and just look at the percentages of spending that it costs. Now, here is the most staggering statistic on this slide. It's at the very bottom. If you can't read it in the back, it says, this issue is predicted to increase 42% between 2017 and 2023, according to the Milken Institute's report, again in 2017. 42%, are you kidding me? So is this issue getting better? Heck no, it's getting worse. I mean, a 42% increase in the most chronic condition that people experience in their lifetimes, that is just unbelievable. Next. That's chronic disease. What about infectious disease? Well, we don't get exposed to infectious diseases here in America. You better think again. Danny, you introduced me to this, and I attended it, the Immune Defense Summit in August 2017. And here's what their prediction is. There's superbugs coming, superbugs that are antibiotic resistant. And they said drug-resistant bacteria are projected to kill more people than cancer by 2050. Okay. So what do we do about all this issue of chronic and infectious disease? There's only one solution. The best defense against today's and tomorrow's global health threats is a strong functioning immune system. Okay, so if you're going to find an innovative solution that challenges status quo, that's where you got to go. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we just saw in that video, which is Aloe Vera Acemannan. It's nature's most efficacious immune-supporting molecule. It's an easy thing to say, but what distinguishes fact from fiction, you know, in healthcare is a thing called science. So I'm going to show you today that we have the most validated and efficacious immune-supporting technology that exists in the world today. Next. Okay, as I said on that video, Acemannan was discovered in 1985. And a group of researchers from Southwestern Medical School were hired to break down the aloe vera gel and see what it was that was causing this incredible immune response. Turned out to be a long-chain carbohydrate that they called acemannan. Now, acemannan is a poly means many, saccharide is a sugar. It's a sugar, and it's predominantly made up of a sugar called mannose. Mannose is essential in human physiology. I'll talk about that just a little bit more in a minute. But you've got little bitty short chains, medium chains, and these huge long chains of these beta-linked acetylated beta-mannans, which is acemannan. Now, different sizes have different effects in human physiology. We're going to discuss all of those this morning so we can show you that every bit of this that you put in your body makes a huge difference in terms of your body's ability to maintain health. Next. Okay, once it was discovered, a company was taken public. It was called Carrington Laboratories. Tens of millions of dollars were raised to commercialize this incredible discovery. The first thing that these researchers realized is that, number one, there was already a $5 billion aloe vera product industry, and not one of the products had its active ingredient. That by itself is disruptive, right? To an entire industry that's promoting the health benefits of aloe vera without having the health benefit of aloe vera. Secondly, these were research pharmacologists that realized the potential that this would have in modern healthcare. Because again, the root cause of all that ails us is a malfunctioning immune system. And if you have a molecule in nature that can trigger that response, that is called gold in that industry. Okay, so it's publicly traded. They received 130 patents worldwide on the discovery of how to stabilize in its various uses for acemannan. Carrington Labs by itself invested over $100 million in research. Hey guys, acemannan is the most studied and researched natural molecule that exists on the planet. Only stabilized acemannan products in the marketplace, they had the whole world in front of them. Next. First thing they did is they brought out the most efficacious wound care technology the world has ever seen, all triggered by acemannan. And look what it was approved for: the treatment of severe burns, the treatment of non-healing diabetic ulcers. That sounds like an oxymoron, right? Non-healing diabetic ulcers means what? That human physiology will not heal that. It's the #1 cause of why diabetics have amputations. They have these non-healing diabetic ulcers. Guess what acemannan did? It went over and beyond normal physiology to help trigger a recovery process that would heal those ulcers. Just incredible. Any kind of open wound. Next. Then they went into veterinary medicine, and this was approved by the USDA as Acemannan Immunostimulant, and approved for the treatment of fibrosarcoma tumors in dogs and cats. In other words, you could inject acemannan and it would affect the physiology of a mammal. What kind of mammal? Any kind of mammal. It would trigger their immune response to go over and beyond what normal physiology would normally do. So very effective as an immunostimulant. Next. And then finally in veterinary medicine, this was kind of interesting, when they started showing this immune modulating capacity of acemannan. This company, which is called Salve, it's the world's largest manufacturer of veterinarian vaccines in the world. They're working on a big problem, and that was in the poultry industry. And in the poultry industry, there's a disease called Merrick's disease, which is a T-cell lymphoma cancer that affects commercially grown chickens. So you got these chicken houses, all the stress and all that. They developed this T-cell lymphoma cancer. Well, it was wiping out massive amounts of commercially grown chickens. That's a disaster, an economic disaster in the poultry industry. So Solvay created a vaccine, and they were getting about 66% protection, which means the poultry industry, even with the best vaccine, was still losing a third of all the chickens that they raised. Again, that just didn't cut it. So they went to Carrington Labs and they said, could we try your Acemannan as a vaccine adjuvant? And when they added Acemannan to that vaccine, it took the protection rate from 66% to 99%, just by adding Acemannan as an adjuvant to a vaccine. So this thing was crossing all boundaries in medicine. Nobody had ever seen anything like it in medicine, anything like it in nature. Of course, the last goal of Carrington Labs, the big brass ring, was to bring Acemannan into the marketplace as a drug for humans. Why not? Most efficacious thing they'd ever seen. Here's the problem. To get a drug approved, you know, in the United States, you go through the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. And they have two criteria. Number one, you have to establish its toxicity threshold, because all drugs are toxic and all drugs can kill humans. So you need to know how much will kill a human. So you have to establish a toxicity threshold. Big problem. Acemannan's completely non-toxic. You can't kill a mouse, you can't kill anything with Acemannan. So big red flag went up. The second thing is you have to alter a process of disease biochemistry in some way. So the physiological functions of disease have to be altered. So in other words, you can make blood pressure go up with the drug, you can make it go down with the drug, right? So you alter some part of normal physiology, and your drug has to be able to show that it can do that in over 90% of the patients. Here's the problem. Acemannan doesn't alter anything in disease physiology. It has nothing to do. You can put Acemannan in a petri dish with cancer cells. It does nothing. What does it do? It activates your body's normal immune functions of defense and repair. And then your body kills the cancer cell. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Well, that's the good news and the bad news, right? The good news is that's the way it works. The bad news is that is not a typical drug effect. So they got denied their application for investigative new drug from the FDA in 1993. Big disappointment. So now it's like, okay, so without drug approval, it will never be classified as what is called standard of care. Standard of care means you have an approved drug for an approved disease process or therapy. Without standard of care, doctors can't recommend it to the public for the treatment or mitigation of any disease. One question that comes up all the time in integrative health is, what is my doctor going to say about this? The answer is not much. Why? Because they have a liability, and all that they can recommend is standard of care approved drug therapies for disease. So this whole movement of integrative health, folks, is not coming from the medical community. It's coming from we the people that are sick and tired of being sick and tired and want relief to chronic disorders. And so we take the best immune supporting technology in order, along with best standard of care, in order to achieve best patient outcomes. Now, are doctors opposed to it? No, of course not. They want their patients to have the best outcomes. And I'm just speaking in generalities here. There are some doctors that say if you do anything other than what I recommend, I'm not going to treat you. Go find another doctor, you know, at that point. Find a doctor who is open-minded to the benefits of an integrative health strategy. One of the things about Acemannan, it has absolutely no negative effect on any kind of therapy. In fact, research has shown that it enhances the efficacy of almost every therapy without any kind of toxic side effects. Okay, next. Next slide. Okay, so now Carrington couldn't bring the product into the market as a drug. So in 1994, they released a product called Mannose, which was the first stabilized aloe vera extract for integrative health support. So it has a classic nutritional effect, not a drug effect. So they released it into the marketplace, and I happened to be at the right place at the right time to see this, was invited to meet with Carrington, And I licensed that technology exclusively and brought it into the marketplace for, again, the most effective integrative health solution. And over the next 20 years, I built a company that sold over $3 billion worth of products containing that ingredient. Why? Because it worked. It was incredibly efficacious. We saw people's lives transformed in ways that no one could have ever imagined, including all the physicians and doctors and researchers that were on our team. It was just amazing. Next. Okay, so once Carrington brought this technology into the marketplace, just going to cover a little bit of the $100 million worth of research that they did. Now, this is an interesting book. It's called The Science Behind Aloe, and it's not a story. All it is a meta-analysis of all the research that's been done on aloe vera. There's been over 700 peer-reviewed papers published on the effects of Acemannan and aloe vera. So what do we learn through research the benefits of consuming Acemannan are? 3 major categories. Number 1, Acemannan supports the structure and function of every cell in the human body. That sugar mannose is essential for normal human physiology. Can't do without it. Can't live without it. Got to have mannose. Second thing, it improves your gut health. And the third thing, which is the desired effect of everyone that's ever taken it, is called macrophage activation. Macrophages are the large white blood cells in your system that basically orchestrate all of the immunomodulatory functions of the immune system. So if you want better quality of life and you're struggling with any kind of health issue, that's what you want to do. You want to turn on the macrophage to start orchestrating what the body is designed to do. These support mechanisms are linked directly to the size of the Acemannan molecule. So small ones do one thing, medium chains do another, and large chains do another. So when I say large and medium, let me give you some perspective. Carbohydrates are measured in a unit of measurement that's called a Dalton. You don't need to even know what that is, but just to give you some perspective, molecules can go from 1,000 Daltons of molecular weight to 8 million Daltons of molecular weight. So that's a broad, wide range of structures. Okay, next. Okay, let's talk about structure function. How does mannose support structure function of a human cell? Okay, so here's a human cell. I don't know if you can read that small print there, but off the surface of every cell in your body are structures called glycoproteins. Glyco is the Greek word for sugar. So it's these little sugar strands connected to a protein. That's what anchors it to the cell. All biological data at the cellular level is transferred through sugars. So you make these little sugar messages, stick them off the surface of the cell, and commute biological data. Like what? Nourish me, repair me, destroy me, protect me, regulate me. Everything that the cell needs in order to function appropriately is communicated through these unique sugar structures. So what does the immune system do? How does it work? The immune system cells touch the surface of your cells and ask 3 questions. Are you me and are you okay? Are you me and are you not okay? And if it recognizes self but damaged, it orchestrates repair. Hey folks, that's free. You don't have to pay anything for that. It's called human physiology. The last thing is, are you not me? If it doesn't recognize it as self, then it determines it's an invader and it starts destroying whatever that cell is. Has anybody ever heard the term autoimmune? Autoimmune means your cell attacks you. Why would your cell attack you? If it can distinguish self from non-self, why would it attack you? Because it loses the ability to distinguish you from the enemy. Mannose is the key sugar in glycoprotein synthesis. You got to have it. Next slide. So that's what those look like. I mean, again, that's an animated cartoon of what your cell surface looks like. But these are 3-dimensional carbohydrates, folks, that have literally trillions of compositions. And every twist and every turn of a sugar connection communicates a different message. They predict that we can never break the sugar code of human physiology. It is that complex. There's not enough computer space on the planet to analyze that. But here's what we do know about these structures. When cells turn against the body, as in degenerative, that's like cancer, heart disease, and autoimmune type functions, research has shown that sugars are missing from their glycoprotein structures. They're just missing. Well, how do you support proper structure function? You've got to consume these things. Glycans are involved in every major disease. Now, if you have a deficiency of mannose, your body has a little bit of an emergency backup mechanism to convert glucose into mannose. But it's not effective enough to make up for a big deficiency. And so what you find is there's missing sugars on these cell surface structures. And the only way that your body can up the production of mannose is, next slide, if you become pregnant. That's it. So when a woman becomes pregnant, she can elevate the production of mannose from glucose in her body. Why? Because mannose is essential in the proper development of a child. Got to have it for good brain health, got to have it for structure function of every cell, got to have it for good gut health, got to have it for good immune support. So a woman starts converting very high levels of glucose into mannose, goes through the umbilical cord into the fetus. Once the baby is born, that transfer goes into breast milk. And it's one of the unique things about human breast milk is it is full of mannose. So you say, what's the difference between that baby formula and breast milk? The number one distinguishing factor is the level of mannose. It's essential, and that's why. Now, here's what's kind of interesting, and it's across the bottom there. Select autoimmune conditions often go into remission when a woman becomes pregnant. Isn't that interesting? So here's a woman with an autoimmune disorder. Nothing in medicine fixes it. She's trying to manage chronic pain, inflammation, whatever, and then she gets pregnant and goes into complete remission. Why is that? Because mannose is essential to a proper functioning immune system. Does that make sense? Once the baby's delivered and she goes through the cycle of breastfeeding, once that's over, guess what? All the symptoms come back because she loses the ability to convert glucose into mannose at that point, high levels. Next. Okay, so that was structure function. Does everybody see how mannose plays a key role in how your cells function in the body and how your immune system? Next is gut health. Long chain. Okay, so for structure function, by the way, it's the little bitty short molecules that can get into the bloodstream. So if you want to nourish your cells with mannose, the structures of Acemannan have to be 50 kilodaltons and below. Not 8 million, 50,000 and below will get into the bloodstream. There's actually pump sites on your intestinal wall that are looking for mannose. And they pump it right into the bloodstream, goes to the liver. That's where glycoprotein synthesis starts. These mannose-based glycoproteins go out through your bloodstream. Every cell on your body has mannose-binding lectins to pull those mannose molecules into your cells and start glycoprotein synthesis. Okay, now what about the real long chains of Acemannan? Really interesting. They get consumed as prebiotics in your gut. Prebiotics means they feed friendly bacteria. And by the way, that's a role of fiber and why fiber is so important in your diet. But what makes Acemannan fiber different than any other polysaccharide is the next section. Long-chain Acemannan polysaccharides can be converted into short-chain fatty acids by the fermentation process of friendly bacteria. So when you feed your friendly bacteria Acemannan, it not only feeds the bacteria, but it converts into short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain fatty acids help support the growth of healthy epithelial cells that line the gut as well as support overall colonic health. Okay, so poor gut health. What's the problem with poor gut health? These cells, called epithelial cells, start breaking down, deteriorating, and bad stuff starts leaking into your body. That's what causes inflammation. When they say all disease starts in the gut, that's how it starts. Your gut lining starts deteriorating and bad stuff starts leaking out of the gut into the body. That's a problem. When epithelial cells start deteriorating, all these gut problems like colitis, Crohn's, irritable bowel syndrome are all consistent with a deficiency of short-chain fatty acids. So it's kind of a nice thing for Acemannan to be able to do, support proper gut health. Next. But again, the most desired effect, and the reason literally millions of people around the world are wanting to find out more about Acemannan is this benefit: macrophage activation. This is where the largest body of research and science has come from with Acemannan. Macrophages are large white blood cells that are made in the bone marrow. They regulate immunomodulating functions of the immune system. They facilitate wound healing and infection control. They serve to detect and eliminate any foreign antigens or microorganisms that come into the gut. So 80%, 70 to 80% of all the macrophages in your body and your immune system is housed in the gut. It is the front line of defense. It's where all the invaders come in, where all the microorganisms, all the disease, all of that starts in the gut. That's where macrophage activity is. And that, by the way, is a macrophage. Macrophages are activated by medium-chain Acemannans. So small chains go into the bloodstream, large chains are prebiotics that convert to short-chain fatty acids, and medium-chain activate the immune system. Next. So when you look at what does that mean, this is just sort of a review of some of the stuff. I mean, listen, guys, this goes on and on. But macrophage activation, it enhances macrophage activity as much as 10-fold, Acemannan does. Hey, that's huge in turning the immune system on. Enhances stem cell production 300 to 400%, speeds up wound healing 35%, supports antiviral, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, and antibacterial defenses in the body. It aids the absorption of nutrients and water in the GI tract. Acemannan actually helps you absorb vitamins and minerals. Improves vascular flow. Hey, listen to this, improves cognitive function. I mean, we've seen two different major research projects with Acemannan. One is, how do you enhance the brain function of healthy, normally functioning people? So we did a study in Australia on college students. I'm not saying they're normal. I'm just saying that, you know, that was the group that we chose. And guess what we could do? We can improve their reaction time, their cognitive ability across the board. That was huge. And then we took people who are struggling with degenerative types of memory loss problems, and we applied Acemannan to them, and guess what we found? Same thing, major improvement. And enhances recovery from exercise and performance. So it's not just for people who are struggling with their health, it's for anybody who wants to improve overall performance. So Acemannan is sort of the panacea molecule in nature for achieving all of those. Next. Nothing really changed in Acemannan processing for about 20 years. Why is that? Because there was patents on it. Nobody else could process it. Now the patents started expiring around 2004, 2005, and other researchers started looking at how can we improve the processing and stabilization of Acemannan. And since the major desired effect was immune activation, here's the question that was raised. How could you identify the optimal molecular size of modified Aloe polysaccharides with maximum immunomodulatory activity? In other words, which size of these Acemannan actually did the best at turning on the immune system? That would be a good thing to know if your objective was to turn on the immune system. And what they found over there on the right is polysaccharides between 4 and 500 kDa, which is like 5,000 to 400,000 Daltons. kDa means kilodaltons, 1,000 Daltons, exhibit the most potent macrophage activating activity. So polysaccharides below 5 kDa or above 400 showed minimal immune activating results. Okay, so now for the first time in history, we knew exactly which molecular weights were achieving the desired effect. So, next slide. Dr. Santiago Rodriquez, who made Mannopol. This is the product that I sold for 20 years and changed lives all over the world. And this is the PhD organic chemist that designed the processing for stabilizing Acemannan, whether it was for the drug effect, in veterinary medicine, topical wound care, or dietary supplement. This is the guy that did it all. So he said, that's interesting science. Why don't we take Mannopol and let's break it down into these molecular weights and let's see what Mannopol actually looks like. Okay, in Mannopol, 10.2% of Mannopol actually was Acemannan. In other words, there's a lot of ingredients that exist in the solids of aloe vera. It's not just polysaccharides. You know, there's trace elements, there's peptides, there's all kinds of stuff. 10% of the constituency of the solids in the gel are Acemannan. Okay, so that's everybody. Then he said, well, how much of that 10% is actually falls into the category of immune activation? 40% of that 10%, so 4% of the total composition. That's interesting. How much is actually bioavailable, meaning below 50 kDa so that you can absorb it into your bloodstream? A little less than 2%. Fascinating. So he said, I wonder if I can improve on that composition, because that's basically what occurs in normal aloe vera extract. That wasn't manipulated in any way. That's basically what the gel looks like. Next slide. So he went to work, and there's Manipole on the left, and this is Evolve Immune. First of all, he doubled the amount of Acemannan per gram. Doubled it, almost to 20%. Look at the immune activating fractions, the desired effect. It went from 4% of 18% of each gram of composition. That's a 4.5 times increase on the immune activating fractions. And look at the lowest level, or the smallest ones, which are bioavailable and absorbable, from about 2% up to almost 10, about a 5-time increase in bioavailable Acemannan. So I've known Dr. Rodriguez for a long time. When he came out with that, and that was his second generation. His first generation was about half that. I said, what are you going to do with that? And he said, we're going to license it to somebody that can take it to the world. We sat down and talked to him about our social business initiative, what we were going to do for making sure that people all over the world could get access to this. But as a result of that, we would feed the world's most vulnerable children this same technology. He loved it, wanted to be a part of it, and he donated the exclusive rights to that technology to the Hope Movement. That's cool. Now, let me just give you a vision into the future. He thinks he can take that and improve it dramatically. And so the other part of our agreement with him, it's in contract form, is not only do we have the exclusive rights to that, we have the exclusive rights to anything else that he produces that goes beyond that. So that's the security that we have in the Hope Movement for that kind of technology. Okay, next. So now we have Evolve Immune, supports structure function, because it's a good source of mannose. It supports good gut health, because it's the prebiotic, the short-chain fatty acid, intestinal tract health support, and of course macrophage activation. That's pretty cool. Hey guys, 60% of the adults in this country have this. That's about, I don't know, 240 million people in this country have an absolute immediate need for this technology. They're living lives of desperation from day to day that, you know, the quality of their life has just been deteriorated. There's nothing available that can give them much relief at all, nothing in a sustainable form, and then we show up with this technology. That is a big market. But here's a question we get all the time. What about everybody else? What about the people that aren't sick? Do they need this product? Well, statistically, almost no one, according to the USDA in this country, adequately nourishes themselves through diet alone. I mean, it's just the reality of the 21st century. What does that mean? Everybody has some level of suppressed immune system deficiency, right? So everybody's a candidate. You just haven't expressed it yet. Tomorrow you could wake up and all of a sudden you're diagnosed with some degenerative or autoimmune disorder. It's just the way it happens. You don't catch it from somebody. It just evolves. So you got that issue of people that want to stay disease-free. That's a good category. But out beyond that are the people that actually want to improve their quality of life beyond what normally exists in human physiology. Next, we used to call that wellness, but there's kind of a new definition of these people. It's called biohacking. And there's a biohacking revolution that is going on in the world today. And these are people that want their bodies to perform better than they do on their own. So they got to biohack their biochemistry in order to make that happen. Biohacking is achieving your body's maximum potential at a cellular level. And you got to work at doing this. It doesn't just happen by your daily routine. You got to find the molecules in nature that actually trigger responses that go beyond what your body would normally do. Next. So the main thing that separates biohacking from the rest of self-improvement world is a systems thinking approach to our own biology. If we want better outputs, if we want to have more energy, more focus, to be free of disease, to have better memory, to perform optimally in business and in athletics, then tweak the things that we put into our bodies and stack the deck in our favor. That's what biohacking is all about. Next. So, where does biohacking, what are the benefits that come from it? Better health, life extension, less stress in your life, more productivity, higher performance. That's what biohacking is all about. How do you improve the quality of life in every facet of your life? And it might surprise you who's biohacking these days. Next. First of all, biohacking comes from good science. You can't read this, guys, but this is typically what happens in the nutrition industry. This guy's shirt says, "Stand back, I'm going to try science." Okay, so when we say disruptive technologies, we're not talking about just disruptive to the medical world. We're talking about disruptive to the nutritional world. Because here's what the nutritional world has got away with for decades. It's immunosupporting technology. It's anti-inflammatory technology. It's good blood flow, producing technology. What does that mean? Nothing's quantifiable. It means that you can do let me give you a good example. You remember St. John's wort and its effects? So it took a lot of the active ingredient in St. John's wort to actually create the effect that was reported for it. So then I think it was Bloomberg went into the marketplace and pulled all the St. John's wort products off the shelf and measured the amount of active ingredient. Guess what? None of them had what science said was required in order to get that effect. But they all claim we have St. John's wort, and St. John's wort has been known to. Hey, by the way, this happens in the aloe vera industry all the time. You know, we got aloe vera, we got stabilized Acemannan, we got all this, and aloe vera is known to be a good immune-supporting technology. Question is, how much immune-activating Acemannan is in your product? If you can't answer that question, folks, everything's at risk that you're doing with that company and that product. So we got to move beyond the stand back, I'm going to try some science, and leverage the real science that exists in integrative health technologies. Next. So what do? We have Acemannan, the highest level of immune-activating Acemannan per gram. So per gram, and this is supplied in what's called a certificate of analysis. If somebody says, our aloe is as good as yours or better than yours, ask them for that. How many milligrams per capsule of immune-activating Acemannan exist in your product? They cannot tell you that, or they will not tell you that. This is what separates fact from fiction, is the actual science that supports who we are and what we do that goes beyond what anybody else in the industry is doing. Purified betalins reduces biomarkers of inflammation 47%. That's not just betalins, that's the amount of betalin that's in our product. So it was our product that was tested, not betalins in general. So the amount that is in our product is what achieves that results, and we have a certificate of analysis on every capsule of Limitless to show us how much betalin is in each product. Now there's, quote, all kinds of turmerics and stuff like that in the marketplace that are all high anti-inflammatory. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means that somebody at some place showed there was an anti-inflammatory response, but it's not quantifiable. And so you're putting your health at risk when you consume non-quantifiable, ingredients. Elevate PT. Let me tell you something. For the world of athletics, this is huge. Trying to increase the energy production of ATP at the cellular level without increasing toxicity, like lactic acid or any other reactive species, that is huge in terms of performance. And we can raise blood levels with the amount of Elevate ATP in both Fuel and Fix, 64%. By the way, with Fuel and Fix, we're going to add Acemannan to those products so that you can not only increase energy, but also enhance recovery, which is huge. Sensorial trim reduces the measure of stress, overall measure of stress 69%. How much? The amount that's in the product. That's how much is in, that's what the science said is needed in order to achieve that. So that kind of gives you an idea. Listen, our whole food products are keto friendly, ketogenic friendly. Why? Because they have the right amounts of healthy fats, low carbohydrate, moderate protein, whole food nutritional support. Everything that we do is science-based, with what science says is necessary to achieve the desired result. Next. How to hack your workout for better results. Let me tell you something. Biohackers have been doing this this is kind of a new term, but athletes have been doing this for a long time. Biohacking to increase better performance. Why? Because fractions of seconds make the difference between world records and 4th place in the Olympics. Let me give you an example of a biohacker. Next. You think this guy needs to biohack anything? This is Leroy Burrell, U.S. track and field athlete, who twice set the world record in the 100-meter sprint. So the first time he set the 100-meter record at 9.90 seconds. That is after years of training and maximizing every ounce of energy that he could produce to set a world record. So then he found out about Acemannan and began to biohack his body with Acemannan for what? Faster recovery, longer workouts to enhance his body's normal functions, and he set a second world record, 9.85. That's not a lot of difference, but it's the difference between first place and last place in the Olympics. Fractions of a hundredths. So these guys have been biohacking, and Leroy Burrell was one of the very first athletes I ever worked with on biohacking with Acemannan. The results were so dramatic with the sprinters. There was Carl Lewis, there was Leroy Burrell, there was all these guys at University of Houston that the coach at University of Houston introduced me to USA track and field. And then we provided Acemannan to all of our Olympic athletes. And then Canadian track and field called. That was a little bit of a conflict, right? I mean, on one hand, you're patriotic. On the other hand, you're like, this is business, right? And so we supplied Acemannan to the Canadian track and field, and then UK track and field called, and then Australian track and field called. And eventually we were making Acemannan products. So world records started all going up all over the world. It was good. Anyway, that's what biohacking is all about. Next. Okay, so from a distribution mechanism, what we had to do is find the most aggressive form of customer acquisition, because social business is all about connecting consumers with children in need. That's what it is. Buy one, give one. That's what we do. So we need the most aggressive customer acquisition program that exists in the marketplace today. It's called affiliate marketing. Next. It was developed, or actually wasn't invented by, but it was perfected by this company called Amazon. I mean, Amazon launches this whole thing about trying to change people's buying habits from going to brick and mortar stores to going online and buying. But they had to have people that would go out into the marketplace and pull people towards Amazon. They are called affiliates. And it worked. Look at what Amazon is doing today. They still have a very aggressive affiliate marketing program, especially for new and innovative technologies that no one finds out about unless somebody goes and educates the consumer. That's the beauty of affiliate marketing. You can educate consumers and share the experiences that people are having in order to enhance the buying, potential of any potential consumer. Next. I love this because some of the most successful social businesses in the world had to use affiliate marketing in order to create brand awareness. I mean, here's a shoe company that is up against the biggest shoe companies in the world. They didn't have millions of dollars to do TV advertising and print advertising, so they went online. They had affiliates that were passionate about their program. They compensated them for telling the world who they were and what they were doing, and they built this enormous brand. Today, that's the most recognizable brand in the shoe industry, not because it's the biggest, not because it's the best shoe, because it's the best purpose. Social business. Next. We developed an incredibly aggressive compensation plan for our affiliates, customer acquisition, Our affiliates get compensated 10 to 40%. That's unheard of in affiliate marketing, first-time buyers. And we have a retention program of 10 to 20%. And I mean, you can do the interviews and the things that you heard today from Ryan, which I think is just incredibly innovative, and I think it's going to work. Give questionnaires to people and just have them fill out a questionnaire in order to help you feed a child. Who wouldn't fill out a questionnaire? And essentially all you're trying to do is find out what their need is, right? And once you find out their need, believe me, we got the technology to solve it. Next. So our affiliate program got expanded just a bit because we needed to in order to connect with the people that have the closest relationship with our ideal customers. Our ideal customers are still those 60% of the people who are struggling for quality of life. They see the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time. Well, those are healthcare professionals, those are chiropractors, those are massage therapists, those are exercise physiologists, those are trainers, those are gym owners, those are all these people. And their typical product distribution model is buy at wholesale and sell at retail. One of the things that the network marketing distribution compensation models never did is address that need. You can make a little bit of money for customer acquisition and a lot of money for building teams. So nobody ever participated in our model that was trying to do over-the-counter sales because it didn't work, didn't fit their distribution model. So in our affiliate program, we did incorporate a point of sale. You can call our customer service and find out case quantity purchases. So if you buy one case of product, and every product is cased in 24 items, 24 bottles of Immune, 24 boxes of bars. So any case quantity, you get a 33% discount off retail. So you can make 66% profit by selling the product, just one case of product, over the counter in your store. 2 cases is a 40% discount. 4 or more cases is a 50% discount. 50% means you buy it for $1, you sell it for $2, and you make 100% markup, right? That's traditional sales for over-the-counter. So that is available to healthcare professionals, to gyms, to salons. Let me tell you, huge industries. A couple named Dwight and Susan Haver just went not too long ago to a big fundraising symposium down in Austin, Texas. That's where all these people are talking about how fundraising is going to look in the future. You know what they're all sick of? They're all sick of selling stuff that brings no value to the people they're selling products to. So we want to raise money for new uniforms. So we take our kids and we send them out into the marketplace with poison, you know, sugar, you know, candy, all this junk that doesn't bring quality of life to anybody to raise money to buy uniforms. What has that got to do with enhancing the educational process in our country? Nothing. And they get it, by the way. And so what they're all looking for is what are innovative new things we can use in fundraising that not only bring quality of life impact to our consumer that could possibly equate to ongoing purchases. Because listen, one of the things the fundraising industry has never had is sustainability. You sell the bar once and that's it. Next year you do it again. Cookie, bar, candy, whatever, popcorn. Why? Because nobody wants to buy it every month. In fact, most of the people, you can knock on the door, I'm going to give you $10, go on, I don't want your junk, right? That happens all the time. Well, that's not a good strategy, and it's nothing sustainable about that. So fundraising, I'm telling you guys, we're going to radically change that industry through not only providing products that bring quality, but providing them with an e-commerce site for their customer base to buy into on an ongoing basis. I've just relocated my office onto the campus of Northwood University, and I'm right now helping them write curriculum for social business and how they can change their whole fundraising mechanism into social business initiatives. This is good stuff, guys. Finally, affiliate e-commerce sites for either the point of sale people or fundraising opportunities to have access to their customer base for ongoing sustainable revenue streams. Next. Okay, so that's the most aggressive form of customer acquisition. What's the most aggressive form of social business? Well, according to this book by David Bornstein, Social Business Entrepreneurship, What Everybody Needs to Know. He talked about the evolution of the model, going through 1.0, 2.0, but listen to this definition of 3.0. 3.0 will be concerned with building platforms that enable more people to participate and profit from social business by building teams and teams of teams to facilitate the rapid circulation and sharing of solutions at a global level. Why is that so powerful? Because major change has never come through institutions in the world, only through people movements. It goes right back to the very core, guys. We are introducing disruptive technologies into industries that profit from status quo. The only thing that will make that happen is a people movement. It is the only thing that can get this technology into the marketplace. And for those of you that choose to be social business partners, you're going to help us build teams and teams of teams that can rapidly circulate the solution that literally hundreds of millions of people are desperately looking for just to live a quality of life that they deserve. And then last but not least is what happens to the kids. And I'll just close with this real quick. I've seen it all. You cannot imagine the impact that we make on kids who have no access to good nutrition, who have no access to medicine. You've heard me tell the story of Romania. You know, kids were dying, 30, 40 kids a year in this one organization. We intervened with Acemannan, and for the first time in over a decade, not one child died. I got to tell you something, folks, that'll change your life. You want to define life of significance? Tap into what we get to do. Find out how what we get to do every day blesses the needs of kids who, without our intervention, would have no hope at all to a quality of life. And we get to do this all over the world. Now, social business is the only solution to the global impact of childhood malnutrition. It will never be done through the government. It will never be done through charity. The largest charity for children's help in the world is UNICEF. They don't come close to touching the needs of the world's of 6 million children dying a year. Why? Because the charity model can't sustain it, can't support it. There's only one solution for bringing the best technology into the marketplace for these kids. It is social business. Everybody has to do something to make a living, guys. We are blessed beyond belief to be able to do this. Thank you.